everyone. So today we have a student from the University of California, Irvine. His name is Jerry. And Jerry, can you go ahead and please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Jerry. I'm a business economics and music performance major with a minor in management. I'm a rising junior. Uh,
Yeah, that's
what
awesome.
else? Yeah.
Perfect. So I guess first and foremost, talking about your majors, you obviously have a very unique combination of majors and minors. You mentioned business economics. You have another major in music performance and also management. So I guess if you could talk about, why you decided to choose that like diverse group of different fields to study in college.
Yeah, sure. So a business economics major and a minor in management is typically a normal combination because business economics is not in the business school at UC Irvine, which
Mhm.
is weird. It's in the School of Social Sciences, while management is in the business school. So a lot of people do that combo. The fact that I have a music major is actually what makes it really weird because most people do not have a major in the arts, especially like an Asian American coming from a very academically like challenging high school. So like parents tend to like stay away from the music major or like the arts majors. Well, for me, because I've been doing music since I was like 5, 6-ish, I sort of just went along with it and just kept going and just auditioned for Irvine with music as like a like sort of like a benchmark school. Like I know I would get into this for sure in order to like have a school that I would actually genuinely enjoy going to. Does that make
Uh,
sense?
yeah, that makes sense. And I think just to follow up on that really quickly. So when you were applying to Irvine as like a senior, did you apply specifically into business economics first, or was it music that you applied into first?
I did music as my backup.
Oh, okay.
So I did economics as my main primary major, and then I did music as my backup. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So then when you were like doing music, obviously I know for some music performance majors, you have to apply in and obviously like kind of like audition to a sense like you mentioned. So did you audition once you got into Irvine or did you have to send that um before you even attended the
Oh,
major?
for music majors, you have to send it before you go in.
Okay,
You go in and audition. Yeah.
sounds good. And I think another thing I just want to mention because obviously like we mentioned, it's a very unique combination, especially in Asian American communities. A lot of parents are like, oh, you got to go into like being a doctor, lawyer, engineer. Like it's pretty typical to kind of avoid the arts, especially as an Asian student. So I guess like what was like, other than like obviously you've been doing it for a while and it's something that you're very passionate about, how important do you think it is for you to kind of have something that you actually are pretty passionate about other than just business? Like how does it help you like kind of manage through college?
Well, it's not like I'm not passionate about business, but
Mhm.
it's like it's a good step away from all the academics because then you have to do lessons and you have to take like all these like creative stuff, which is sort of like a good like distraction away from doing purely economics, purely management, purely business stuff, which is kind of going it's like getting tiresome. It gets really tiresome when you're just spending all day studying and reading versus when you go into this separate little category where you're actually being graded for, but it's like fun because
Yeah.
it's creative and it's interesting. It's something that like it's a hobby that can benefit you essentially.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I know a lot of students are, they're very interested in, doing music or something art related, but a lot of times, there are that pressures of students to go into something that's not really art related because of, job stability or looking for something after college. But yeah, I like how you mentioned that, you can still do a little bit of both with business and music. So yeah, I think moving on now, talking specifically about UC Irvine. So I guess why did you decide on attending UC Irvine?
So Irvine, like my two choices were Santa Barbara and Irvine,
Mhm.
because but like Irvine has a better like it's more like a it's more of like a school within a college within a city rather than like Santa Barbara. That's like sort of like I'm not dissing Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is like a really good school, but like Santa Barbara is like not really it's a college town, but there's no like real city.
Yeah.
Versus Irvine, where you can like if you have a card and you can just drive in the city, you can get Asian food, which is like one of my big deals. Because
That's
like, and Irvine has a really like big Asian culture, which I
yeah,
didn't really want
cool.
to like stray away from, coming from like a city like Arcadia, where like most people are Asian.
Mhm.
Plus, like the school itself, it's not. It's like kind of like a little more. What's the word? It's like it's big, but within like the big like research university, there's like individual like schools, like the School of Biology, School of Social Science, School of like engineering. So you get both like the big school, like you can meet everyone from different majors, but you also can stay in your little like area if you want to or if you need to. Like if you need a network, then you can go to like your business friends But if you want to branch out, then you can go just introduce yourself to random people if you want. So
Yeah,
that's kind of why I chose Irvine. Yeah.
that's awesome. I guess following up on that, there's actually one thing that you mentioned that a lot of students, especially in the San Gabriel Valley area in California, in Southern California, it's a pretty high Asian population. So a lot of times, I think it's pretty true to say that Irvine is kind of known for being a very Asian heavy school. Like I think roughly 60 or 70%, I don't know the
Yeah.
exact number, but a good portion of it is Asian, especially, from where we're coming from. We came from a predominantly Asian school as well too. A lot of students, when they're going there, they want to attend a school that's a little bit more culturally like diverse in that sense. So I guess for you, you mentioned obviously you wanted to stay true to kind of like the Asian culture. So in your opinion, why did you decide to go to Irvine? Like, why did you want to stay connected to kind of like that cultural environment?
Because it's sort of like when you want, like, I don't know how to explain it. Um, I guess because I didn't really want, I wanted to like express myself a little more. Like I wanted to spread out, but also I didn't want to go completely off. Like I didn't want to be like yes, I did want to be exposed to more things, but at the same time, it's sort of like scary
Yeah,
to be like introduced to completely new cultures. Like if you go to the East Coast, it's completely different.
yeah, for sure.
Or even like NorCal, it's completely different. You're going to be like stuck with like new foods, new and like like new like attractions, new places you have to go to. While versus Irvine, which is an hour away from San Gabriel Valley, where you can travel back anytime you want, but you also have a little more freedom.
Okay. Yeah, so would you say it's kind of like it's kind of in a sense like it's almost like a transition period for you to like be able to branch out a little bit more, but not like have a complete culture shock like immediately. In some sense, like even though Irvine is relatively has a high Asian population, it's you are a little bit or you are able to branch out a little bit more than you were in high school. So it's like it's not too sudden of a change, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of people, like a lot of my friends, going to like Princeton. I have a friend who goes to Princeton. He was completely shocked by the complete lack of Asian, basically,
Yeah.
because even like Princeton is a college town by itself and it's predominantly white. And he was just like really like, well, I don't know what to do here. Versus Irvine, we do have a little more diversity, but it's still predominantly Asian. So I do have like the sense of comfortability, like comfort. I'm like more comfortable.
Yeah. Uh,
Like
oh,
it's an easier transition into like the real world because then rather than being like put straight into a new environment.
okay. Yeah, it makes a lot more sense. And I think the last thing I have, obviously in your decision for UC Irvine is, the UC schools are a public school system in California. So, it's a very
Mhm.
great system. So did the fact that Irvine being a public school, impact you wanting to apply or like decide on attending it? Because, public schools, they are a little bit larger, but they're also known to be much cheaper than private schools. So did the fact of Irvine being a public school factor into kind of your decision making?
Yeah, because I have a little sister and she has to go to college too. So
Yeah.
we also had to like balance out how finances are going to work too. So yes, public schools were a big deal.
Mm.
Like, because it's like what, a third of the price of our private school,
Yeah, for sure.
probably.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think there's a lot of people like even I was talking to someone earlier. Is like they're saying that they're a public school, and even if you get financial aid for a private school, it's still like two times the cost of like the UC system. And I think the UC system, you are getting a really good education, and it's a pretty affordable too. So I think it's definitely something people should consider looking into. Yeah. So I think I actually want to take a step back from college, going back to actually your senior year of high school, back to when you were applying to college. So I guess first and foremost, how would you summarize your college application process?
So I started preparing about the summer before senior year.
Mhm.
Like I started writing essays then, and then I started looking into colleges. But my like research started around sophomore junior year, like
Okay.
where like going to where like researching what schools exactly. Like my parents took me to visit all these like colleges, USC, UCLA, Santa Barbara, San Diego, like around the summer sophomore year, summer junior year,
Mhm.
and then senior year I was like I need to limit these choices.
Mhm.
Like I need to like put this down to like maybe 10 schools, and then I started writing my essays around the beginning of senior year. I started like asking professors for like help. Here's my essay. Can you please look at it? And if they're nice
Mhm.
enough, they'll say yeah. If they're not nice enough, they still say yeah because they're your teacher.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then because mainly the like the UC system, the main like issue is the essays and everything else you've already done. So there's nothing really else you can do in your senior year. because your electives are already done, you're already set, and then you sort of like have to like research like what major do you want, what your interests are, what your electives align with.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, and I think that's great. And I like how you mentioned, you actually started pretty early compared to most students. I know a lot of students, they don't really actually like fully engage even to like where you started in your sophomore year until their senior year. So I think it's interesting how you obviously, it's something that you started a lot earlier in the process. And I think, in doing so, obviously trying to get the information and, resources to understand how this process works, it's different for every single student. And like you mentioned, for you, you obviously visited a lot of college campuses. But other than that, what would you say was your main source of like getting information to understanding the entire system? Was it just the internet, upperclassmen, maybe your school had resources, family members? Like, what would you say was the best way for you to help better understand how this entire process works?
I guess a lot of like alumni. Like I had a lot of family going to UCLA, UC Irvine. Like I asked them, hey, what did you think about it when you went? Of course, it was like 20 years ago, so it's like not entirely reliable, but it's still like a good sense of commute. Like it's still not going to change as much as you think in 20 years.
Mhm.
Like buildings may change, but like professors are still going to stay. Like the community itself is going to be the same. So I asked a lot of alumni. I had a lot of like alumni from Arcadia who I asked. I like texted them, hey, what do you think about this school? Why did you choose this school? And then, of course, when you go visit, you get to experience what they're saying in person too.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's a really good point to put out. I mean, especially since I think the best people to ask, in my opinion, are those that have already attended the college or are currently at it because, they know it the best and, they're actually at the institution themselves. So they know what the college is kind of looking for in a sense based off the environment that, they've been kind of within. I think, and, another thing with college application is there's a lot of different challenges that students face. Time management is one thing, but actually being able to manage school, how to even start. So I guess for you, what was your biggest challenge in the college application process, and how did you personally overcome it?
My biggest challenge. So I had to rewrite my essays like 5 times because I was not confident with whatever I was writing because I started early and then of course it progressively changed the more I talked to people. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't write about this, maybe I should write about this, maybe it gets too deep here, maybe it shouldn't get too deep. Of course it should be deep. Like in the end I was just like completely like I messed up. So I rewrote it like a month before all of them.
Mhm.
So I feel like my challenge was figuring out what topic to write, which has
Okay.
always been kind of my like challenge in terms of writing because I never really know what to talk about or what to say. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right, makes sense. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think, especially since, like, for example, the UC system, they offer you like 8 personal insight questions, and you choose, 4 out of the 8. And a lot of times, there's that whole thing like, oh, maybe you should answer this question instead of this one because it might sound better. But yeah, I think it's just finding something that we can relate to the most. Obviously, something that you can passionately write about the most. And yeah, like you mentioned, it's supposed to be deep to some extent, but if you're really passionate and you can actually relate to it, then yeah, I believe that it will be deep in that regard. I guess, just to wrap up the entire college application system. Um, if you could redo the entire process, what would you have changed, if anything at all?
Um, like from the start, I would have been more engaged in extracurriculars. Like
Okay.
I had a decent amount, but I didn't have like stuff that were tailored toward the major I was intending to.
Mhm.
Like I would have joined like probably FBLA or speech or something or mock trial to get on that path a little sooner than later.
Okay. And I obviously it seems that even though you didn't have the extracurriculars that geared towards what you're doing, you still obviously succeeded. So do you think that extracurriculars in high school, because a lot of students wonder about this, the stuff that you do in high school, do you think that it really matters a lot towards what you're doing in college, or do you think just finding extracurriculars that you're interested in and exploring is good enough to do in high school?
I personally think that extracurriculars, like the topic of the extracurricular isn't
Yeah.
like as important. It has some degree of importance, but it's not entirely important. I think more importantly, it's more like leadership and the fact that you know how to spread yourself around campus and you know what you're interested in and you know what makes you stand out versus every other candidate.
Okay, yeah, I think that's awesome. And, I realized that I talked to a lot of high school students, and they're like, oh, should I join like, this program because it's related to, let's say they're pre-med, they're saying, oh, should I join like a biology club? And then like, realistically, maybe that kid's not interested in like bio in that regard. So I think agree with you. Yeah, definitely, every extracurricular holds some sort of merit. You're gonna learn something from it no matter what. But it's like, did you have the leadership position or whatnot to actually, take initiative or whatnot? So yeah, I think that was great. Let's obviously again, transition a little bit more into UC Irvine. So, kind of what I mentioned earlier was that UC Irvine is a public school system. They have a huge your student population is huge in comparison to a lot of the nearby private schools. So
Mhm.
how are your class sizes? Do you have a lot of really like super large class environments, or do you also have some classes that are pretty small as well too?
Well, so my experience is a little different from everyone else because I have the music major. Music major classes are usually tend to be like 20 people max
Okay.
versus my econ classes, which are like ranging anywhere between the discussion size being 30, 40 people to major lectures being 300, 400 people.
Mm. Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. And I would say obviously, yeah, I think for definitely for music, it's obviously going to be a smaller class, and discussions are usually with a TA or some like lower professor. But in those, in like those larger lecture halls, obviously you have a specific professor teaching the class. Have you ever found it difficult to like communicate with them, or go to office hours or email them because it's such a highly populated class?
Yeah, of course. It's really hard to like talk to a professor whenever after class when they're on like a time crunch. They have another class in like 10 minutes and like 20 minutes, and there's a huge line of people asking questions. Then you don't really have the courage to go up. But the thing is, with professors, they also have office hours, which people tend not to go to.
Okay.
So I feel like that's a good like place to like get to know your professor because it's really good to get to know a professor in case like you want a letter of rec or you're just interested in the topic and you just want to learn more if they have research opportunities. So getting to know your professor is really important. It's just really hard to at first. But if you email them, hey, can I go to your office hours? I know this is awkward, but it's not like I don't understand the topic. I'm just interested in it. Then they'll be more willing to be like, hey, yeah, sure, I'm free these hours. And then once you actually go, you may be nervous at first, but it gets a little more comfortable.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think, at first it's intimidating to talk to a professor because, they're super knowledgeable about what they're doing. So it's kind of intimidating, like that you know almost nothing compared to them. But they're super passionate about it. And, at some points they almost treat you like almost as if you're like a friend more than a student sometimes. So I definitely think that, going to those office hours, a lot of students don't actually take advantage of it unless it's like, midterm or final season. But for the most part, it is important to utilize. And yeah, so, obviously, I think another thing, UC Irvine is huge. You're gonna have a lot of students, but with that, there's also a lot of extracurriculars that you can participate in college. So, I guess what are some extracurriculars that you're participating in? And obviously, if you want to elaborate on one or two, or maybe talk about something, music performance, like if you perform at concerts or whatnot.
Yeah. So from my freshman year, I joined accounting association. I was also in the university orchestra. I did chamber performances with my quartet. I'm joining the management association too. Uh, but like because some of these are music based, they're more like performance based. So you actually have concerts, you have gigs, you have paid gigs, you have not paid gigs, which are really bad. Um, so yeah, there is a performance aspect to this. Orchestra is a big. It's free to anyone to join. So is chamber, but you sort of have to ask first. Accounting association, I joined it because that's what I thought I was going into at first, but I sort of like slowly dropped out because it was kind of not where I was interested in. That's why I'm joining management association.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, and I guess expanding on that, you mentioned that you start off as accounting, and then obviously it transitions a little bit more into management. So I guess kind of going back into like what you've been studying. Obviously, you have a music performance major, you have business economics, and then a management minor. So I guess what is your plan after undergraduate? Are you planning to go straight into like finding a job, or are you looking? A lot of business students or economics students look into MBAs. So I guess what is your plan after undergraduate?
So MBAs require a job experience. So I was planning to look for a marketing job or management job, HR job after college, see if I can work there for a couple of years, like 3 to 5 years is average, and then go into like an MBA program
Mhm.
in order to like progress higher into the field.
Mhm. Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I think another thing is I was wondering, because obviously some students think that what you have to study in undergraduate is going to be pretty much what you do in life, but that's not the case for everyone. And obviously you have a music performance minor, so or major. So I guess for you, where does music performance kind of play a factor into your job search in the future, or like how do you think it affects what you're going to do after undergraduate?
Well, music performance isn't really going to affect that much in terms. It's more of like a, hey, I stand out compared to all these people because I have this creative side,
Mhm.
which a lot of people don't because they're all like academic heavy. This is what I did in undergrad. I only took econ management business classes
Mhm.
versus I might personally stand out to these like companies saying like I did these tech classes, but they're all music, or like
Mhm.
I did these like word and music. I did orchestra. I had a creative side,
Mhm. Okay.
but I don't personally think that music will be like a big aspect that they'll focus on in my future job searches.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I think going just kind of expanding. So you would say that even though music itself directly doesn't have like a direct correlation to obviously business or management, you think that at least it develops kind of like those personal, interpersonal skills, like obviously in like creativity. So like other aspects that would still help you in the business world, but it might not just be music directly, correct?
Yeah, like performance.
Hmm.
When you get in front of a person like a group of people and present your plan you're presenting, you a lot of people get stage fright versus a music performance major who's used to playing in front of like a large group of people.
Mm.
Or like
Yeah.
group work. If you're working in an orchestra or chamber ensemble, then you have to work closely with a group of people versus like just a regular like business student who occasionally has group work, but they don't have the experience of working like a long period of time with the same group of people over and over again.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there's a lot of other skills that you can take from music, and even though you do have that music aspect of it too, it's not necessarily music that's going to help you propel forward. It's like the skills and other things that you took from it. Yeah, and I think just to kind of wrap up the entire video. So if you could give advice to high school students, whether that be about the college application process, the college lifestyle, or just life in general, what would you tell them?
Um, 8 a.m.s are really bad. Uh, I had to take one last quarter. It was really bad.
Yeah.
What else? If you're applying to a public school, especially a UC system, they're probably going to be using a quarter system.
Mhm.
It's going to be a lot more rush. You don't have a lot more time as you think compared to high school. Like I came in thinking, oh, it's 10, 11 weeks. I have enough time to study. And then I end up doing everything week eight, week nine.
Mhm.
And it's not fun. So if you're going to a public school, then you have to be prepared for the rush of 10 weeks and then finals week. And then you have a week of break and then you're doing it again and again, 3 times,
Yeah.
maybe 4 times if you have summer.
Mhm.
What else? The application process. I think that yes, you should be involved in things that you want to go into, like extracurriculars that you should be going to. But I feel like more importantly, you have to be able to explain yourself in your college essays. You have to be able to explain yourself. This is what I'm interested in. These are why I'm interested in. This is the leadership I took into it. So I feel like you starting that early versus then like trying to rush all these leadership positions in your junior year just to put it on your application. It's not worth it. Like
Mhm.
find things you're genuinely interested in and figure out how you can improve yourself via those things.
Okay.
Uh, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think that was really great advice, and especially something that a lot of people, you know, I think it's important to look ahead into the future too, because especially when you're applying to the UC school, you're just focused on applying, but you don't realize the fact that yeah, it is a quarter system. It's going to be a lot more. I wouldn't say like rigorous, but it's a lot more fast paced compared to like private schools where it's a semester system. It's a little bit slower. Obviously, the challenging is gonna be based off what your major is and what school you're attending, but yeah, UC and like public school systems, it is a bit more rushed, especially if you are on a quarter system. So it's something to keep in mind. But yeah, I would say, that's obviously, a lot of great advice for high school students. And it's something that, they should definitely consider. And obviously, we want to thank you so much, Jerry, for coming out and talking with us for this video. Obviously, we definitely appreciate it. And we hope that everyone gets a lot of information from it as well. So yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah. No problem.